Back here in the hole. Good afternoon to you. It's about 33 degrees here. Absolutely baking hot, but things have to be done. Had a bit of a change of mind about the hole in this plastic and what's going on here. Still, these walls here are holding just fine. It's been over a week now since the hole was dug, but there has been collapse going over there, and just as I arrived today, another chunk fell off there. So it's not so much the chunks falling off now, because this is going to be filled with gravel in a couple of weeks. It's more that when the gravel's in here and I'm going over with the ruler compactor, the vibrations, I think I'm going to start really making everything fall down, and it's going to be a mess. So what I've got is the digger man coming tomorrow, and he's going to put a talus on it, basically a bank, not a 45-degree bank, but what he's going to do is going to go a bank is going to leave the 40 centimeters vertical, and then is going to go up about a 30-degree bank diagonally upwards. So what that's going to do, that's going to save me money, because as you know, there's going to be a 40 centimeter fill of Tuvenon, the 0.80mm gravel. So the volume's not going to get bigger. The volume's going to get a little bit bigger for the 0.30, 0.20 gravel that I'm putting in to a 30 centimeter depth. But the guy's good. He's thought it through. So he's going to come tomorrow and actually put a little bank on all this. He's also going to compact it. So when he's done, it will look basically like shiny glass, the clay. On that bank, within hours, I'm going to basically put Geotex back on it, but instead of just putting Geotex on it and wet it, I'm going to make a bath of clay mud. So I'm going to get the wheelbarrow, fill it with water, add clay to it, make a real soup, and then I'm going to put the Geotex in that and then stick it onto there. That should hold it together, providing that I keep it damp for the next couple of weeks, because this weather's just getting hotter and hotter. I know on Monday, it's a Friday now, on Monday it's going to be 37, 38 degrees, it's going to get hotter and hotter. Then we've got a storm coming in on Wednesday. I'm sounding like a weather reporter now. Nevertheless, bad weather's coming for a couple of days. Let's get this done. It doesn't matter if it's getting wet, it will dry out again. September's coming, which is, generally speaking, fingers crossed, the hottest month of the year here. So I'm going to basically clear off all these bits of clay that have dropped off, that are actually holding the plastic back. I'm then going to take, and this is all going to be done with a wheelbarrow, going to take off all the clay that's fallen down and then expose it. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to do some spray painting, but we'll get onto that in a minute. So now, just need to get the Geotex off, and then we're done. Well, getting rid of all the plastic and Geotex anyway. The Geotex that we're trying to liberate, because we're going to be using that tomorrow once it's soaked in clay water. But this clay, it's pretty heavy because it's really wet. Considering this has been exposed for quite a few days now since we cut it, and covering its it's held pretty well, especially over there where it's not getting the sun south facing all day. Here it's starting to, well, this is, you see, this all fell basically more or less before we covered it up, and the rest has actually held quite well. So this technique would work for a handful of days in a canicule, in a heat wave, for sure. But since it's got to be left like this perhaps another 2 weeks, it's going to be best to put a bank on it and recover it, but actually stick the geotex to the bank. So we'll see how that goes. But first, we need to liberate this geotex. So what I'm doing now is I'm just misting down the bank and on top because it's very, very dry. Basically, it's just trying to get it to hold overnight before the digger comes and puts a bit of a bank on it. I need it to hold overnight because I'm going to be putting a line at 40 centimetres from the bottom, a line 30 centimetres back from the top so the digger can see what he's doing. So I'm basically just making this damp. I don't want it too wet because it might get too heavy. So that'll pretty much do. And as you can see the areas that have collapsed the most as we look around these south facing areas. But all in all, not too bad considering it's been quite a few days since this was originally dug out. There goes a piece now. It's probably wet enough. So the next task now is to basically draw a line 40 centimetres up from the bottom in order that the digger man can know where he's going to start digging to create un talus, which is like a bank. And the bank's going to continue up to 30 centimetres away from the edge. Now what I could do is I could try and find a level 40 centimetres above, create string lines and all that, but that's quite a lengthy process, and I've got the advantage here that the sun is going down. Now what I can do, if I set the laser up, the laser's currently on at the moment, I'm going to find the highest point in this pit, and the highest point is strangely more or less absolutely here. And trust me, I have actually been round the whole area of the hole. I'm looking at a little spirit level on the back of this. I think they call it a truth pole, this, to just check that it's more or less bang on vertical. And that's basically saying up a little bit, down a little bit. So this is actually set now. That's saying go down a little bit. So actually we can, just a tiny bit, let's just give it a smidge. Check the bubble. There we go. There we go. So we found an area which is actually 1 centimetre higher there. I don't think there is any higher spots, plus or minus a centimetre, so that's saying up. So I think that is pretty much the highest point. Back into focus. So what that means now is that this is at 98 centimetres, give or take. 97.5, call it 98. What that means is if I now reduce this by 40 centimetres, this will then bleep when the bottom of this is 40 centimetres from the highest point in the hole. The engineer specified that we have to have a minimum of 40 centimetres depth of Tuvenon, so it makes sense that the highest point has 40 centimetres of Tuvenon on it. Because that creates the minimum depth. There are areas which are deeper, that might have, because it's all contracting at different rates now, that might have effectively 45 or 50 centimetres Tuvenon on it. But the key thing is that the highest point in the whole hole does have 40 centimetres of Tuvenon on it. The 0 to 80 millimetre gravel that I talked about before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this by 40 centimetres. So if that was at 10, we'd go down to 60. So we're going to take off a couple of centimetres more there, and a half, just to be really anal about it. Now this will now beep. That means the fast beep means go up, slow beep means go down, up, down. So at that point there, right there, I'm going to go and get my spray paint. We've got a nice yellow, so let's get this nice and straight. So that's saying go down, that's saying go up. I'm just looking at the bubble at the back to make sure it's straight. Up, down, up. Right there. Now, we can do something clever with that little mark there. So remember that mark is now 40 centimetres above, that's saying down, that's good. That mark is 40 centimetres above the highest point in the hole, therefore that meets the engineer's specification. If we fill this hole to there with Tuvenon. What I'm going to do, instead of setting string lines all around here, which will be timely, I'm going to wait till it's a little bit darker. When it's dark enough, I'll be able to actually adjust the stand of the laser, and I'm going to match the laser with that point there. So what I will see is a green line going all the way around here. Don't need to worry about string lines or anything, and I can just run with the spray paint straight along and draw a perfect line for the digger, which is 40 centimetres above the highest point within the hole, which would be absolutely perfect. So I'm going to wait till it's dark to do that. It's going to be much quicker. Next, I'm going to basically mark paint on here 30 centimetres away from the edge. So again, I'm just going to have to put stakes in, have a little look down, 30 centimetres, and then paint a line on the floor.